Welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast. I'm Kristi Piehl. In athletics or arts or business, there is always someone who has the distinction of being the first to accomplish something. Today's guest is Cullen Jones. If you're a fan of the Olympics, you certainly recognize his name. He has 2 gold medals in swimming, and he is the first African American to set a world swimming record. Now that he's retired from swimming, Cullen is working to make sure that while he will always be the first, he won't be the last. Cullen, welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And that was well said. I do not want to be the last.
And that's what your story, I think, resonated so much with us, is that you're still swimming. You're not competitively swimming anymore, but you have this bigger mission. So talk a little bit about, what your mission is and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, Chrissy, at first, right after, hanging up the goggles, I was a little lost. And I think most swimmers can speak to this. I know Michael Phelps talks about, the mental health around it. I know Caleb Dressel's spoken about the mental health around it. When you've been through so much training to go to the Olympics, there's this massive hit of dopamine, like, yes, I did it. And then once you come home, it's like, okay, now what? And right as I had retired, my wife said, "Oh, I'm pregnant." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, next phase of life. I got to figure out how to support my child at this point." Um, I was finding odd jobs. I was a lifeguard. I worked at a hospital for the foundation here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then ultimately ended up coming back to the sport and working for Speedo. But it really didn't resonate with me what I was doing and my calling until my son said to me, "Daddy, I want to swim." And I have always been a firm advocate for learning to swim, nearly drowning at the age of 5 myself, and understanding what a life skill swimming is that everyone needs to learn. But it wasn't until after what happened to George Floyd. I was actually profiled outside of my house because my 6'5" frame in a suburban area, guests didn't fit. And I started thinking about my son and how I would have to teach him how to potentially disarm someone that has a gun verbally. Um, and I started thinking, this is way I need to give back. And the one thing that I know I can do, and my voice is the loudest, is in the swim space, because I don't want my son to go through what I had to go through growing up in the 90s and in the early 2000s of the racism. How can I do something? And the first step is learning to swim. So that was where my mission changed from getting gold medals to trying to make the sport as inclusive as our country.
Such a powerful story. And it's funny how until you're a parent, doesn't really resonate until
Right.
you're looking at the actual person that you are responsible for. And
Yes.
boy, this isn't just an issue now. This is a personal mission. And
Yes.
I'm in Minneapolis now.
Mhm.
I could see after George Floyd's murder, I could see the smoke
Yeah.
rising, and we had employees displaced because of what was going on in the surrounding areas. And there are these different parts of racism that have just the light has been turned on to some parts of the darkness. And water sports is one of those areas that feels so far behind so many other things. What kind of impact do you hope to have? Like, how do you say, okay, I did this and it's successful because?
You know, besides the soapbox after getting a gold medal, because everyone has to listen after that. But for me, it was what is at my disposal. I said I worked at a hospital for a year, and that was right as COVID was hitting. I mean, baptized by fire. I was like basically a call center. At first, I was trying to help people pay for their bills by finding grateful donors. To now, I'm doing call center. And then I was like some kind of like, and I'm a religious person, but the universe and God pulled me back and said, "You're coming back to the sport." And that was before my son said what he said. And that's what clicked. I was like, this is my mission. This is what I want to do. And so as soon as that happened, I was like, what is at my fingertips? Well, I have a great relationship with USA Swimming. So I've been an ambassador for an initiative called Make a Splash since 2008. I was one of the co-creators of that, about trying to get people all across the country to learn to swim. All right, well, let me connect with them. That turned into me being a board member. I don't know how they got me, but now I'm a board member for USA Swimming and the foundation. And 3 years in, I love it. And then I started partnering with Goldfish and understanding that, one, my son sees me as dad, the fun person. So when I'm trying to coach him, he does not listen to me. So I want to keep the sport fun. I want to keep all of that fun. So I started looking at partners that would help me to elevate him and elevate my message. And Goldfish has been an amazing partner when it comes to that. So I really just try to align myself with my mission, but also with great partners that can believe in me and help me in this mission. Because I know when we start talking about drowning, I've been doing this for 16 years. I've been talking about drowning for 16 years in every group, whether it be Black Americans, Indian Americans, Asian Americans, Caucasian Americans. It's a problem across the country. I wanted to align myself with people that believed the same thing, like-minded partners, to elevate that message to try to save lives.
And what's the barrier? What's the barrier to people who aren't, they drown because they don't know how to swim?
You know, I've been digging into a lot of the history too, and a big mentor of mine and friend, Bruce Weigo, who's down at the International Hall of Fame in Fort Lauderdale, right after 2008, and I got that gold medal. He was like, "Come down here." And at first I'm like, "Oh, I'm being inducted into the Hall of Fame." No, that wasn't it.
Not
But
yet.
he, not
Not
yet.
yet.
Oh, I'm working on it. I'm trying. But he brought me down, and what he wanted to show me was this book, and it was illustrations of um, Black slaves swimming, and honestly trying to swim away from slavery. And then at that point, Black slaves were either beaten or just told over and over and over again, you don't swim, because these slaves would rather swim to death trying to get back than to stay in the new America. And so we're talking about over 400 years of a culture being told, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this. And now you get into the early 90s and you're talking, hey, we're going to segregate schools, we're going to segregate pools. You get the worst of this, you get the worst of that. You don't get taught. And now we're talking in 2024 when I can go to a family function and say, well, Black people don't swim. We don't do that. Yes, we do. We have Simone Manuel. You have me. You have Sabir Muhammad. You have Maritza Correa or McClendon now. You have so many different people that have broken that barrier, but we have a culture that still says this is something we don't do. And that's trickled off into Asian Americans, that's trickled off into Indian Americans. But as a whole, as a culture, we have a big problem around drowning. And it's just because we are not taught, it's not part of our development to teach kids to learn to swim. And that's why we need to change it.
And you brought up such a good point about the generational impact, because swimming is one of those things that for many, many children, the parent or the grandparent teaches the child to swim or is in the
Right.
water with the child at
Yes.
the YMCA or whatever.
Yeah.
And so if the parent is afraid of the water,
Yes.
how is the child supposed to get the learning? So how do you help with that if the parent is like, I literally can't help you with this. You're going to
It,
have
it,
to teach my kid.
it has been the biggest mountain that we're trying to climb, with the work with USA Swimming and the University of Memphis and University of UNLV. They've done, I think, 3 studies now at this point, and there were 3 major factors with people of color not learning to swim. The number one being fear. Fear that someone has had themselves or just a negative experience around water. And then to your point, the second one was parental backing. If the parent doesn't know how to swim, there is literally a 13% chance that that child will learn to swim. Now, if a parent does know how to swim, there's an 88% chance that that child will most likely learn to swim. Obviously, there's always a margin of accidents and all of the different things to incorporate into that. But parental backing is a massive piece of this. We need to get parents to understand the importance, but then, of course, to give our children positive experiences around water. And then, of course, the third one was physical appearance, ladies in hair, men wearing smaller suits, those types of things, being comfortable around the water. I think the biggest way to really continue to do the good work of trying to get people to learn to swim and get this message out is exactly what we're doing right now, having the conversation, having people understand the importance of it, having parents understand that it should be a part of the culture. When you look at Australia, not, I mean, swimming is one of their national sports, but to not know how to swim in Australia is like to not know how to swim in, or not know how to drive in the States. Like, you don't know how to drive. What are you from New York? Like, no, you just, we know that here people know how to drive. Well, there, that's how people know how to swim. And I swam for a Jewish community center for about 4 or 3 years of my life. And I learned in the Jewish faith. It is to be a good parent or especially a good father. You learn to walk, you learn to talk, you teach your child to swim. It's part of the development. And that's what I think we need to adopt as a culture here in the US.
Do you think that if we transition the message from you need to learn how to swim so that you can be on a swim team or you can participate in a sport to you need to know how to swim so you can save yourself, that does that help parents get on board? Because there are so many sports kids can pick up. You don't have to swim, but swimming is one of the few things where if you literally don't know how to do it, you can die. I mean, I don't need to know how to hurdle or synchronized swimming or
Yes.
jump, the ridiculous diving stuff. I mean, it's amazing what these athletes can do, and
Yes.
we just finished the Olympics. But I can go my whole life and just watch people do it. Swimming
Correct.
is a life or death.
Absolutely. There is no other sport, like, I mean, there is no other sport that is a life-saving skill besides swimming. And so I think for parents, I always say the same thing because especially like you brought up the Olympics, but let's just talk about the summer in general. When it comes to the Olympics, people get really excited about it. So I think we get definitely a bump of people just being excited about the pool as Team USA does what Team USA does by winning and you see the great performances. But you also have another piece of this. Parents will send their children to a pool, to a lifeguard to watch 500 kids. Like, folks, like that is not the safest thing to do. And that, trust me, I am an advocate for all lifeguards. I'm a lifeguard myself. But the best thing to do is to teach your child to learn to swim. You would never allow your child to play football without pads or sit in a car with no safety belt. Why are you allowing your child to go to a pool thinking that one lifeguard can watch 500 kids? It's not safe. You need to make sure that as a parent, as a guardian, we're teaching these children to learn to swim. And here's the best part about it, and this is what I tell everyone. It's like riding a bike. You never forget. Once you learn, it stays with you for the ride. You might get a little, you know, rusty like myself as a retired swimmer. I got in, I was like, oh, these shoulders hurt. But you never forget how to learn to swim. You never forget to learn to swim.
Rusty. I'm sure that your version of rusty is not the average person's version of rusty. Because like now you can't
That's fair.
beat Michael Phelps anymore. I mean, come on.
That's right. He didn't swim the 50. That's right. I'm calling you out, Phelps. I don't want to race you now, but I'm still in the 50. I would win that one.
Because you dropped his name earlier, I figured we needed to circle back so you could have a little dig.
Anything over a 50, that's all him. He's the GOAT.
Short distance.
Yes.
All
Longer
you.
distance. That's all me.
So if we've got people listening and they're afraid of the water,
Yes.
and they feel like the proverbial ship has sailed for them, but they have kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews, would you encourage them to call a swim school and ask specific questions so that they don't feel further shame when they get there and they don't want to get in the water?
I would say do as much research as you feel comfortable, but I think when you have places like Goldfish that you can go to learn to swim, like honestly, I've walked in and my son Avon just runs to the teacher. It's like um, any other thing that you're learning. We all had a favorite teacher. We always said the favorite math teacher, a science teacher. It can be the same thing when it comes to swimming. My son runs to his swim teacher because they built that rapport. And I think for any parent or guardian that's listening to me, I want them to understand that all you need to do is get them there. Once, yes, they may have bad days where they don't feel like getting in the pool, but I have been doing this for over 16 years. I have talked to so many kids about swimming. I have yet to have one swimmer say to me, it's hot outside. you know what? I don't want to be in the water. Kids are naturally drawn to it. It is our job as parents and guardians to give them the tools to be safer around the water. And the only way to do that, the best way to do that, is swim lessons. And you made a very, very good point, Kristi. I just want to make this very known. I'm not going to say her age. You can do the math. But for Mother's Day 2 years ago, I gave my mom a swim lesson. So it's never too late, and that ship has never sailed. It is one of the best sports that you can do. It is the best workouts you can do. And whenever someone's injured, I have had a ton of my NFL and NBA friends while I'm training, they're running on the side because that's what the PT tell them to do. Come to the pool. It is one of the best things you can do for your body. So I got to tell you, there's never too late and it's never too early to learn to swim.
It's such a great point about the cross training benefits and the health benefits of swimming. We're watching Receiver now on Netflix about
Yeah.
NFL receivers, and I didn't know that a lot of NFL training facilities had pools in them for athletes to
Yes.
rehab. So if you think that you're raising the next NFL, NBA, soccer, whatever athlete, you're doing them a favor and you're making them a better,
Come
more
on to the pool.
well-rounded. Yeah, they need to be
Yes.
well-rounded because they need. It's a great way to cross train. I hadn't even thought of it. It's a great point. Okay, now I have I haven't talked to someone who has something that I want so much, which is you have the Olympic ring tattoos on your arm. And I
I
keep
do.
joking with my kid, like I love the Olympics, and I was
Yes.
joking with them, like if I got the Olympic rings as a tattoo at my age, no one would
Yes.
even, they would just assume that at some point I was an Olympic athlete,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, of course. You can be an
Everybody's
Olympian in
doing it.
something.
Okay, show them off because
So this was my first one. This was Beijing and London, but I knew that in life I wanted to work in corporate America, and in the time, tattoos weren't always looked at as a professional thing. I am happy to say in 2024, most companies have they're okay with it, and they have kind of matured their thought process. So I went a little crazy on this arm. And so I have actually my one of my son's favorite words was double decker bus growing up. So this is an homage to London, and then on the back is an homage to Beijing, and I have the Olympic world record in one of the torches. So I went a little crazy on the left arm.
That's awesome. You earned that. You earned the right to go crazy, tattoos or otherwise. How long do you think your record will stand?
We are at 16 years. Those guys were real close this year. I saw them out ahead, and I've got to tell you, I was able to give Chris Giuliano, Caleb Dressel, Jack Alexi, and Hunter Armstrong their medals at trials in Indianapolis. And I gave them the medal. I was like, I can't believe I'm giving the medal to the four guys that might actually break this record. And they were like, no, we can't break it. No, 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 no. I was like, no, you guys, I would be so thrilled. They're for some of the nicest gentlemen that I've ever met. And yes, I think that next year they were real close. They might be able to pull it off, but I think ideally I would love for it to be broken on home soil. So LA 28, I mean, I will be in the stands screaming, and I really hope they break it.
And of course, you want Team USA to break it, and they got to do it
I
before
mean, I
someone
thought
else
that was a
does.
given, Christy. I mean, we're gonna take the gold.
Well, Michael Phelps has some words to say about USA swimming right now, so I just wanted to make it
True,
crystal clear
true,
that if it's going to get
true.
broken, you want it to
Yes.
be by USA swimmers.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love for that to happen. And I think we have, especially in the 100, we have so much depth that I think in LA, I think we can win it again for Team USA, but they're getting close. I think it's going to be broken soon.
And Olympic coverage, it happens every time, whether it's winter or
Yes.
summer. There's the child of an athlete, a former, Olympic athlete who then is
Yes.
following in the footsteps. Is your son going to follow in the competitive swimming footsteps of dad?
I am fearful for him because when I was in Paris, I got a text message from my wife from a video that she sent for me where Avon said, Dad, I want to be an Olympian when I grow up. And I'm like, ooh, okay. And he was watching swimming. So He loves the water. He's caught the bug. So I, as a parent, say whatever you want to do. I'm, I like soccer a little bit more, but, but I mean, whatever you want to do, kid, I'm behind you. That's what my dad did for me, being a black, uh, kid from the Bronx growing up in New Jersey. He wanted me to play basketball because he played basketball. I played until I was 15, but what I couldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for my sound parents that allowed me to be who I wanted to be. And swimming was something that I was just so passionate about. I loved it. I loved being in the water. And I'm going to do the same thing for my son. Whatever he chooses, I'll be behind him.
It's great. And what a great legacy that would be. Maybe it'll stand until he breaks it.
I mean, I would love that. I mean, Phelps has 4 kids too, and so I'm told a couple of them are pretty good swimmers. So I know Lochtey's got his son is a good swimmer. So there might be some youngsters coming up soon.
Now that would be a relay team.
Yeah,
That would
I'd be happy to sit in the stands with those guys watching our sons swim fast. And
Oh, that would and
you
daughters.
know, and daughters. Lochtey's got two girls, so we'll see.
That's awesome. The last thing I want to take just a little shift to more serious. You brought it up, and I want to, because very few people can resonate with being an Olympian and having the gold medal and coming back and having that kind of, oh my goodness, what's next? But I think everyone can relate to, they had accomplished the goal. They did the thing. They finished the course. They got the graduate degree, whatever it is. And then they look in the mirror and it's like, okay, now what? What kind of advice do you have for people who they accomplish the peak without a plan about what to do on the other side? And so many people impacts them negatively with mental health. And since the world is talking about that now, which is so healthy, what advice do you have? Because you've been there.
One of the things that I always like to tell other athletes in general, or, I do a lot of public speaking especially for large businesses, and, they look at the Olympics and they're all like, wow, look what you did. Here's this medal. And I'm like, well, you guys do the same thing. I mean, you just do it in a different arena. You set the goal, you go after the goal, and you're relentless on pursuing that goal. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I try to tell people, no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what it is that you go after, be relentless in your pursuit of what you're doing. And even if it's something that, you fail at it, it's a part of the process. I mean, you see all of the wins. Yeah, Phelps has a lot of wins, but there were some losses in there too. And I can definitely say that there were some losses for me as well. We get so focused, especially with social media, about the best versions of our lives, the best versions of ourselves, and we stop understanding that there's some fails in there, and that's okay. If you don't know what that next thing is, one of the best advice I got was from a children's book, The Horse, the Boy, and I forget the whole title, I'm butchering it. But they said, I can't see the forest. Well, can you see your next step? And I think that that's the biggest thing that a lot of people are afraid to do. We do so much planning. Wow, I got to do this and this and this, but you haven't taken a step. Take the step. You'll learn as you're going through it. So for all those that are listening, don't be afraid to fail. Take that first step. You never know what can happen. I definitely did not grow up nearly drowning at 5 thinking I was going to be an Olympian. No, what I did was I took the next step and then the next step, and I just kept going. I do it in the corporate world. I've done it in my sport. I do it as a parent, because let me tell you, there is no book for parenting. I just take the next step.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I love the concept that, you're going to fail, you're going to struggle. And that's one of the purposes of this podcast, is to talk about some of those struggles, because we do see the gold medal, we see the accolades, and this year's Olympic coverage, maybe it was Snoop, I don't know, but this year's Olympic coverage, more than any other year that I remember, was really open about people's struggle. And it wasn't just, oh, look, they're amazing and they got the gold medal. It was so many of them, I wonder, boy, if they hadn't had the struggle or the near drowning or the parent who got sick or all the different tragedies that have happened, would they have ever realized that they were capable of getting to the next level?
Yes, 100%.
Probably not.
No. No, I mean, I think a lot of athletes, um, I tell a lot of parents this because I know for a lot of parents, it's how much do you push? Or like, I get this all the time. How much did your mom push you? How much did your dad push you? And honestly, the answer was not much at all. I don't think my mom really knew my times, which was great. I had a great dichotomy between the two of them. Like, my mom was just super cheerleader. She was there, whatever you need, I'm excited. And she asked the proper question. I will tell every parent, every guardian, do not ask the question of your child or any child, how did you do? No. How did you think you did? And that flips the script because for most athletes, we are already our own worst critic and judge. And we're already beating ourselves up that, oh, I missed that turn, or I missed that pass, or man, if I would have just done this. And I think as long as you as a parent, you as a guardian can create a safe space for them to have that conversation. My mom was big on the 15-minute. So the 15-minute rule was I got to yell, scream, get upset. I couldn't really curse at that age, but when I got upset, I could do all of that. And then her next question to me was, okay, how are you going to get better? Okay, how are you going to fix it? How are we going to, what's the next step? And I think that that's so important because if there's always something to work towards, then it's not really a failure. You're just learning from the process. And I don't know that she knew that when she was instilling that in me when I was 12, 10. I think it was really because she didn't want me crying at the table at Olive Garden, but that's beside the point. But she always kept me going for the next thing. And I still do that to this day. And I think it's one of the most important rules that both my parents instilled in me.
Excellent advice and points. And I think another question that parents, a coach actually told one of my sons, or told the parents, always ask your kid, did you have fun?
Yeah.
Because if
Oh,
they
God,
quit
yeah.
having fun, time to move
Yes.
on because it has to
100%.
be fun.
Yes. I always said I would retire when I wasn't having fun anymore. And to be honest with you, as a professional, I did the mental work. I went and saw a sports psychologist because I wasn't having the fun. And they had to remind me that, like, remember why you started this. Remember that kid that jumped in the pool doing the cannonball. Yeah, maybe I don't want to do it at 5 o'clock in the morning for practice, but make sure that you swim for that kid. And I know it seems super cliche, but when you're a kid, you're still having fun. Your friends are there. When you start thinking about contracts, and I'm watching Sprint on about track and field and Noah Lyles and all of like what they're saying is like, yeah, you have friends, but if I don't win, that's my contract. And it's so true. As a professional, it just has a different light to it. But when it comes to parents and guardians, like when they're young, like let them have fun, let them enjoy it, and then let them come to you with that comment. Because I'll remember I was 12 years old and I said, Mom, I am tired of losing to this kid. And at that moment, that's when my parents were activated and said, okay, now you got to make sure you eat right, make sure you go to practice, make sure you do all of these things. But that was because I wanted to win. That was because I wanted to seek more. Other than that, I just wanted to have fun and they wanted to keep it fun.
And you knew then what you were relentlessly pursuing. You were pursuing
Yes.
beating the kid, and you had to
Correct.
find it, and you had made the choice, and they
Yes.
were just supporting you.
Yes, 100%. And I think that that's where parents want their dreams to be lived through their kids. And my dad was no exception. He was being drafted by the Knicks. He was a basketball player, amazing, amazing, amazing talent. And I could bounce a ball before I could lift a fork. Like he wanted me to be a basketball player. But when he saw my love for swimming, I'm just so thankful that it wasn't like, no, don't do that. I just want you to do this because I might not be who I am and where I am today.
Yeah, great lessons, lots of different lessons.
Yeah.
I'm sure the longer we talk, the more lessons you'd give us. But I suspect that your son at some point is going to like bang that door down. So,
Yeah, he's been running by.
last question, Cullen. Is there a quote that you would share with us? A quote from a book or a mantra or a lyric or scripture, whatever, something that you would share with us that has helped you as you flipped your script?
You know that there's so many really great ones. I'm a big reader. I love Jocko Willink. I love Extreme Ownership. But I'm gonna choose from a fictional character that I love, and it's actually Harvey Specter from Suits. And he says, "Winners don't get upset when the other side plays the game." And I think for me, I know as long as the game is being played fair, my biggest focus is always being prepared. And as long as I can do what I can do everything that's in my power, that when I stand behind the blocks or stand up before I'm going to speak or before a meeting, if I prepare, then I have to have the confidence that nothing can stop me. And I took that into the pool. I couldn't tell you what someone else was doing. I don't know what they're doing. I know that what I can control, if I can prepare and be ready for that, if that's eating right, going to practice, studying, reading up on something, whatever it takes to be prepared, if I can control that, I've seen the outcomes go in my favor. I like to say that I do 90% of the work and then faith takes care of the rest. And so I try to tell people no matter what, if I get swimmers that are like, you didn't do well, it's like, well, did you do those slip turns I told you to do? No. You didn't prepare. Did you go to all the practices? No. Prepare. And so I think for everyone, as long as they are doing the work, I promise you faith and the rest will come.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. And I didn't say it at the beginning, but congratulations on all of your success
Thank
in the
you.
pool, outside the pool, and the work that you're doing now with kids and
I
making
appreciate
sure
it.
that you're not the last.
Nope. I don't plan on it. And I've seen already quite a few talents coming up. You've got Simone Manuel. We've got so many people coming up that are holding the torch. We're going to see a lot more people of color, but more importantly, we're going to see Team USA and LA 28 crush it again. We're just, I'm excited.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. All right, Cullen, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having
And
me.
this week's Flip Your Script challenge is pretty simple. What are you relentlessly pursuing? Name it, figure it out, go for it. And if it doesn't work out, find something new to relentlessly pursue. My hope is Cullen's story empowers you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find the strength to turn the page.